Hey guys, Caleb here, and this is the new Aputure P60C, and it is the best LED panel right now, period. I'm going to turn it around because it is very, very bright, and I'm not just saying this for clickbait. It really is the best option under $400. It's actually at $350. There's really only one reason not to buy this light, and we'll get to that later on in the video. But first, let's flip things around, and I'm actually going to start by showing you what this light can do in the studio. Then I'll go over the features and the brightness specs, which are going to blow your socks off. Well, hello. This little setup is just the 60C, nothing else. It's very sad. We're going to work on that. Really harsh source. I also have the 60X behind me lighting the background, so you can just get a little more exposure back there and see what that looks like. So we've got the light. Let's go ahead and try to solve this nasty harshness. And now we've got the included softbox attached to the light, still a little harsh for my liking, so let's try something else. Now we have an umbrella attached to the light, so we're getting a much larger, softer source, which looks pretty good. But let's take things even further. Now we've got the ultimate soft setup. So we're going from the 60C through the included softbox and bouncing that off of a 4x4 foot foam board. That is giving me my key light. I'm actually going to turn off my background light, and as you can see, it's got a nice soft light hitting me and the background. So this is a kind of a nice one shot, one light setup. Obviously I would like a little bit of fill on this side of my face, but that could be easily achieved with another foam board. And for this setup, because we are diffusing and bouncing, I did have to boost my camera settings. So the light is at 100%, and I raised my ISO and opened up my aperture compared to our previous shots. But these settings aren't crazy, so you could easily achieve a setup like this without having insane, ISO levels or a super fast lens. I'm shooting at f2.8 right now. So this kind of goes to show you how bright and versatile this light is using modifiers like bounce boards and things like that. Now let's talk about using the 60C as an RGB background. So I have a key light setup here with a softbox. The light is just behind me, the 60C, with the included softbox. I'll turn it on here. That's 100% output, 100% saturation. There might be a little bit of spill on me here, but I can go ahead and change colors and get a pretty nice filled out background behind me, and I think it looks pretty fantastic. So you could easily fill a background for framing kind of like this kind of a medium shot. I could probably even go wider and still have plenty of color coverage. This is great if you need a really clean background. I use this kind of look for a lot of my thumbnails. Just really nice to have a panel that you can just blast a wall with color. Okay, this last one is going to be a little weird. So I've got a projected image behind me, and I'm going to use my phone to source match that color and try to make my key light look like that. So I'm going to, let's say, one of these weirdish orange backgrounds right there, and I'm gonna pick that up. And now when I turn around, my key light is matching that color. You can see here on screen, I can make adjustments. So let's bring up the intensity. Something like that looks fine. I can tweak the saturation down and up, as well as the hue. I think this is just nuts. Maybe we'll go in here and make this a little warmer, something like that. And there you go. I just grabbed a color off of that without having to tweak colors and mess around with the light. I can just simply use my phone's camera to pick up the color directly off of the background. Definitely kind of a weird one, but amazing that you can do this with a $350 light. Now let's get into the features of this panel, and we'll talk about brightness and accessories and all of that good stuff. So Aputure actually has two versions of the P60. The P60C, which stands for color, and that's what we've been talking about in this video so far, and the P60X, which is slightly smaller but only does by color. Honestly, after spending some time with these lights, I think spending the extra $100 for the P60C is 100% worth it, unless you're never going to use RGB or the tint mode, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The P60X is going to be slightly smaller, slightly lighter, but not be quite as bright, and this light, the P60C, has slightly better accuracy than the P60X. If you pick one of these lights up, in the box you will find the light itself, a nice bag with little cubbies for everything included, a power supply with a really nice locking connector for both the light and the AC cable, as well as a removable hanger for the power supply. You also get a really nice soft box that pops open and has these little magnetic arms to keep it nice and taut. It can fold up into this tiny bag for travel, and it comes with a full grid to direct your light. And here's what the softbox looks with the grid attached. The lights have quarter 20s on the bottom and left and right of the light, and it comes with a spigot, which you can easily mount to the side or bottom of the light, as well as a new 5/8 to 5/8 female adapter for mounting the light. And this thing is fully metal, unlike previous Aputure models, which I've had tons of, and they crack all the time. You can see on this light, I've got the mount set up so I can tilt the light if I need to. There's also a place for an umbrella if you're into that, allowing you to diffuse the light or bounce it. Now let's get into the specs and features of the P60C. First and foremost, weight. It is pretty heavy actually, at around 7 pounds, so there is a ton packed into this light panel. The light can be powered with 2 MPF batteries or the included power supply. The batteries can be charged while on the light, which is really cool. On the back of the light, we have all of our controls, and the layout and design is very similar to Aputure's P300C, which is really great to see. So you have everything you need. You've got an LCD display, 3 knobs for controlling all of the settings, mode selection, a menu button, as well as 4 preset buttons that can be held down to save your particular settings. There are 4 different light modes on the P60C. First, we have CCT, and this is your standard color temperature setting. You can choose between 2500 Kelvin and 7500 Kelvin, set the intensity, and add a green or magenta shift to the light, which is so nice to have. The HSI mode on the P60 is really where things get interesting. Here you can choose your hue, saturation, and intensity. And man, is it bright. Right now I have the light kind of set to cycle through the different colors. I'll turn it up to max brightness, which is 100% of course. And as you can see in the background here, it's pretty darn bright. I'll put my camera settings on the bottom of the screen, and I'll even turn off all of my background lights so you can get an idea of how bright this thing is. That wall behind me is probably 12 to 14 feet behind me, and as you can see, it's just a bright light in color mode. So here I have the light in CCT mode. It's at full brightness. I've turned off my background lights, and as you can see, this wall that's probably 12, 14 feet behind me is very well lit. Another great thing about the CCT mode on this light is that if I change the color temperature, you shouldn't notice much of a dip when it comes to output. Traditionally, older lights, you would often have it, dim on the cool end and the warm end. So here we are on the warmest end of the light. As I bring it up, you're not really going to see any change in brightness, which is fantastic. The FX mode allows you to program different effects into the light. Currently I have it set to party mode, so you get things like color changes, you can change the speed, the intensity, all of that stuff, and there's a ton of different effects to choose from. And the final mode is the gel mode. So if you're used to traditional lights where you add gels to the front of the light, you can essentially jump in here and just start changing different settings. So I can go over here to half CTO or color temperature orange. Really, really powerful and a great way to match traditional lighting if that's what you're into. If you tap the menu button, you'll go into the menu system and you'll have control over the Bluetooth control, which is incredible, as well as things like fan speeds. You'll be able to turn on and off studio mode, which allows you to have the light turn on and off when AC power is applied. So really, really good stuff. And when it comes to those fans, they're pretty darn quiet. So there's 2 on the back here. I think it's a blower style. I feel air coming out of the bottom of the light, and I'll crank the light to 100% so you can hear the fans at full speed. Honestly, I really don't think this is going to be a problem at all. Much quieter than a lot of other lights from even Aputure. And another huge feature with this light is it supports the full Sidus Link app control. This means it'll create a mesh network with your other lights, and you can control it from your phone, even do things like pick up colors from your camera on your phone and beam them over to the light. Super powerful app, and there's so much you can do with it. Now let's talk about brightness and color quality. The main thing I've noticed was that the color temperature setting, so 3200, 5600, is almost exactly right on when I measured it with my spectrometer, which is very rare for LED lights. CRI and other color rendering specs are fantastic on the lights, so nothing to worry about there. But things get really interesting when we talk about the output of the P60C. So I compared it to the P60X, and the C was pretty much brighter in all the different modes. Then I decided to compare the P60C to the P300C, the Nova light from Aputure, which is a $1,700 light, and the numbers broke my brain. In short, the P60C has more than half the output of the P300C. That includes normal color temperature modes as well as RGB. So you're getting more than half of the output on a light that costs 20% of the P300C. So this light is $350. The P300C is $1,700. So you could buy almost 5 of these lights for one single Nova. Now, don't get me wrong, the Nova is amazing. It's super high quality and it's a great light fixture. But if you just want a ton of output and all of the same control features of the Nova, this light is ridiculous. And that brings me to the number one reason you might not want to buy this light, and that is the form factor. This whole video, I've been talking about this as the best panel light available right now. But sometimes you don't need a panel or don't want a panel. For example, a lot of lighting requires us to use large modifiers. Using LED panels for that use case is really tricky, and it's hard to, find a 5-foot softbox for this thing. So if that's your use case and you really need a light with an interchangeable modifier mount, you might want to be looking at other lights that have a Bowens mount. Another budget option would be Aputure's 100D, which I've done a review of and love, or you could wait for my review of the upcoming 60X and 60D lights from Aputure, and that should be available next month. But as it stands right now, this is the best budget LED light panel, $350. And by the way, Aputure did send me these 2 lights, but I have pre-ordered 2 more C's because I think it's just the best panel, and I can't wait to put those to work here in the studio. So that is going to wrap up this review. If you want to learn more about the lights, check out the information in the description. If you want to support the channel, check out my camera guides and LUTs, which are now available for the Sony a7S III and other cameras. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you in the next video.